Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's been a while since I've been on here, and I wanted to share a couple things with you today that have been impacting me, and hopefully they will be an encouragement to you. The times that we live in right now are rough. There does not seem to be much peace or truth, and most of what we see and hear and are fed are things that are chaotic, confusing, and at times just discouraging. And I find that even within the Watchman community and the people that are watching for the soon rapture of the bride. And the past few weeks, as I've observed a lot, these are just my personal opinions. I feel like everyone is trying to prove that they know something that nobody else knows, that they have the answers. And I've even heard people that are very well meaning saying things like, if others would just study their Bible the way I study my Bible, then they would know that they are wrong in their thinking. And that has become very discouraging to me because if I've learned anything in my walk with the Lord, it's that we're all in different places at different times. And He doesn't rely on us listening to others to get our information or discern truth. What He relies on is us with a heart that is open and seeking Him. So I've really cut down on what I'm watching and what I'm listening to. And everything that I listen to, I just take to the Lord to have Him kind of describe to me what, if anything, I need to know. One of the things that came to me a couple weeks ago as I struggled with something that I was hearing and I just did not understand it, and it went against a teaching that I had learned previously. And I was having a hard time with that. And I finally asked the Lord, what am I supposed to do with this? I never want to be like a brick where it is formed and it is set and there's no chiseling, no changing. It is just a brick. I want to be clay in the master's hand. And so when I hear something that everyone is jumping on the bandwagon about and saying, this is it, and if people would just get it together and study, they would figure it out. And I still couldn't figure it out. I found myself getting discouraged. And so what I did is I asked the Lord, what do you want from me? And I believe, and this was for me, that He said, ask the question, will this bring you closer to me? And that was something that I really had to wrestle with because there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of teaching going on about things in the Word that is interesting, fascinating, and new. But I have to, when I'm struggling with something that I can't figure out, I have to stop and ask that question, will this bring me closer to the Lord? Because sometimes He doesn't reveal everything to us at the same time. And sometimes these people could be wrong or off base. So instead of me trying to figure out for myself, are they right or aren't they right? What I need to do is I need to run to Him as the clay and He is the potter and say, Lord, what do you have for me? And is this something that I need to know at this time? And if it isn't, that I just need to relax in the fact that He's got me. So, what I tried to do over this last few weeks was to go back to the basics. And this channel was supposed to be about the basics, about how to study the Word, how to draw closer to Him. And that's what today's message is about. It's one more idea that you can use when you're studying the word to help you to understand it. And what I'm trying to do all the time is to try to find new ways to get new information into my brain so that I can figure it out and so that it makes sense. Because if you've been a Christian for any amount of time, you know that you can read the same scripture over and over. And it's kind of like putting oil on a pan. It just kind of rolls off and you're not getting anything new from it. So, what I asked the Lord was, give me a new way of seeing what I have seen 100 times before. And I believe He did. And that's what I want to share with you today. And what I did was I took something that is near and dear to me, which is my artwork, my painting, my creative process, and I applied it to the word. So I know that there's many things out there of people being all creative with little doodads and, little sticky notes and all that. And that's great, but that did not work for me. But what I wanted to share today was something that did work for me. And I'm hoping you can see this. What I did was I bought this. And I bought it at the Dollar Tree. It cost me like $3. And it's a little mixed media notebook. And what I did was I started at Psalm 1. And what I've been doing in my personal devotional studies as I've been studying the Psalms. And as I've been studying the Psalms, I've been putting them down in a place where I could see them, where I could visualize what it is that I'm reading. And so, what I do first is I read through the psalm and I take a piece of paper like this and I start putting down my thoughts about what is the psalm trying to say. And in Psalm 1, one of the things that has always been very near and dear to me is that verse 3, he will be like a tree firmly planted and fed by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season and its leaf does not wither. And I put that in here as my key verse. That's what I thought about. And then I put a couple other notes on here and I drew the tree so that when I go back and look at this notebook, I can immediately look at Psalm 1 and I can see the verse and it will bring to my recollection. As I further studied the psalm, I was thinking about the narrow path and the wide path and how that applies to us and how it applies to here. So what I did was on the back of that same page was I drew that. I drew the narrow path and I drew the thick path. And then I put scriptures from Psalm 1 on here about how those things apply to each one of those paths. And so, again, as I read back through this at a later time, I can visualize and I can read the psalm, and just through pictures, I can remind myself of what God is telling me through the psalm. So then I went on the next day to Psalm 2. And again, I did the same thing. I went through the psalm and I looked at it and I saw that there were two groups of people there. And one group, it says, blessed are those who take refuge in him. And then at the bottom, I have the people plotting in vain. And I took portions from the scripture and I listed each one of those things that they do to plot in vain. And then I put the seat, the throne of the Lord. And in the middle here, I put unbelief is the sin against the remedy. And I put over here, the Lord, what does he do? He laughs. He scoffs at them. He rebukes in anger. He terrifies them with his wrath. So I put little notes on here. I got different color pens and pencils, and I put these on here. So again, as I'm going through my notebook, and each day before I go on to the next one, I go back and I look at the Psalms that I've already covered. As I went into Psalm 3, You can see I did the same thing. I went through it. Now, this psalm is very special to me. And at the bottom, you can see a little man in the water, and he's just above the water. And one of the things in this psalm is in verse 3. It says, "But you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory and my honor, and the one who lifts my head." And this is important to me and a good reminder. Several years ago, I lived in Florida and I attended a church, and there was a man named Lou, and his wife was Mary. And Lou was a fisherman and he had a boat. And he and his son and friend went out into the Gulf of Mexico in this boat, and the boat tipped over, and we got a tropical storm. And those men were out there for 3 days in thunder, lightning, and 40-mile-an-hour winds. Everybody thought that they were gone, that they were dead. If you want to go back, you can look at it in the news. That's exactly what happened, is they were out there. And Lou later on said that what kept coming to me was this verse that said, "My glory and the one who lifts my head." And he said that the Lord kept his head above the water in those 2.5 days that they were out there. He was hungry and thirsty, and he didn't have a way to get water, and he took out his false teeth, and the rain fell into his dentures, and he gave himself hydration. So when I look back on this page, I can no longer see, just that the enemies have increased and they're rising against me, but I can remind myself through the picture that I drew that I have a real living example of how the Lord touched Lou and Mary. And it went on to be national news, and it went on to be something that Lou did not forget for the rest of his life, and neither did I. So when I look back through my little Psalm notebook here, I am reminded, it's like a memorial stone to me of how God does protect his own. I continued with Psalm 4, and I did the same thing. And here, this one I labeled choices. And it looks like a man sleeping in confidence. And I put some of the things from the scripture that were meaningful to me along with the key verse. And I drew that. And again, every day when I open up this journal, I look back on those and meditate on what I have written and what I have drawn. And it is an encouragement to me. Psalm 5. This one I really struggled with because it was talking about the contrast between the evil man and the man who relies on God. And so what I did was I kind of did some word study, and then I went on and kind of looked at some pictures of how can I write in picture form what I'm trying to say. And I came up with these little men down here that their hearts are in destruction. They are a gulf of lies, nothing trustworthy, and they rebel. And then we have our man over here surrounded by favor with a shield. And again, this is all taken from the Psalm. And these are things that when I look back at them, I'm reminded. It keeps my mind steadfast. It keeps my mind on him. I've got one more to show you. And that is what I did today. And this is Psalm 7. And I realized that it is called one of the penitential psalms, and I had never heard that before. And penitential basically means one of those psalms where the psalmist is crying out for not only forgiveness but mercy. And so I drew the picture of the broken man here, and I put the reminder verse that was my favorite from this. Let me see, "Return, O Lord, rescue my soul. Save me because of your steadfast love and mercy." And I put over here the tears that it mentions in there. He says his bed was wet with tears. And I listed those things that the Psalm said about tears and what they are. They're weeping. His bones were dismayed. His body was in anguish. He was weary from groaning, and his eye was dim with grief. Excuse me. So that's what I did. And then I put the promises that were here and what he did with the restoration. So this is just one more idea that you can do to keep your mind steadfast on him. It's not healthy for me to spend all my time trying to figure out what people are saying about what they're studying. It's not healthy for me to go in and look at people's videos over and over and try to decide who's got the right things and who doesn't. What is beneficial for me is to go to the Lord and take the word and find a way, excuse me, to minister to myself. So that's what I'm continuing to do. I'm still working my way through the book of John and listening to videos on that, but I needed more. I needed to really meditate, to chew on, to spend time with my Lord, having him speak to me about what he wants me to know at these times. I keep thinking it's quieting the chaos. And that's what it is for me. This quiets the chaos that's going on. This brings me truth. This brings me a strong place to stand on the rock. So that's what I wanted to share today. And I hope this is something you can use in your own study. Be blessed.